Well, to the weekend must watch on Intercut, the weekly show going through all the movies, TV, and entertainment that people just can't cut away from. I'm your co-host Arturo Zurita, and joining me from beyond the grave, it's Zachary Shevich.
Ooh, I guess it is a little bit beyond spooky season, but we don't have to let it go that quickly. There's still plenty of horror coming out to talk about. We got Heretic coming up this weekend that I know a lot of people are really excited for. Our buddy Chase loved that movie. Do you have a good spooky season? Yeah, could be the best of the year.
See it twice.
Right. Do you have a good spooky season? Do you do anything fun for Halloween?
Hey, look, I realized years ago you do not need to celebrate Halloween. You let the kiddos go get the candy. You let the people who are giving out the candy give you the leftovers. And it's a sweet season after that. But for the most part, I was catching up on a lot of horror movies at home, a lot of horror series and the such. But overall, it's been pretty relaxing. I don't know if you're getting the cold front again. I see you with the sweater. So
yeah,
the leaves are changing over here. So at least
chilly.
The cold comes with some beauty, which is what I'm happy with. But
yeah, the view from my window is a beautiful rainbow of yellows, auburns, reds, and greens. So that is one silver lining, but it is chilly, especially Penny's getting me up for walks with the daylight savings, especially an hour earlier. Man, it is cold when that sun hasn't yet risen.
Yeah, you could feel the hour that was taken away. I don't know if you had any people walking around in costumes. We would walk lady around in Chicago, and you would just see people dressed up in the craziest things. Right? I couldn't tell if they were still doing Oktoberfest crawls, but then I saw Batman and Batgirl were standing right next to us. Funniest thing in the world. But it had rained that day. I don't know about you, but it's been raining for us a lot. Bro, I turned the corner. I see a rainbow, and I kid you not, there's a leprechaun walking down the street. I don't know if that was God-given to some degree, or if that actually was just someone dressed up as a leprechaun on that day doing their pub crawl. But some of the funniest stuff over here. Curious to know what
wrong holiday. He's a few months.
I guess you can. Hey, you can still be green. You can still dress green.
Sure.
Maybe it was a triple one. He had missed out in March. Maybe it was at South by. He got the Halloween, and then he's got the Oktoberfest crawl. So if anyone has had some interesting stories, I'm curious to know, because they always do that thing throughout the year where people dress up as certain things. I don't know if you saw any of the big celebrity ones. There was one that's escaping me that I was like, wow, y'all actually went all out with that. But I think for just a majority of the film Twitter posts, people have gone all out with the substance. I think that was the one movie all year we think, what is going to be the Halloween costume? What are people going to want to dress up as? Every iteration of the substance that I've seen, from the star to like the ending frame of the star to the, let's just call it, third act Sue, all of them have been incredible stuff. These have to be people who are working with the production studio, because it was some insane cosplays. But I don't know if you had any that you saw throughout the week.
Shout out our buddy Amanda as well, who had I think 2 different substance costumes of her own.
It took me a while. I thought it was for the video, which it probably still is. And then I remembered, I was like, oh, it's Halloween. There you go.
Yeah, she killed it with the
bro. I think there was someone in her comments too. I fell for it too. I thought that was legit merch.
Yeah,
she's like, nah, that's duct tape.
That's incredible, right? I'm not that crafty.
That's fire. No, man, I even went to the Alamo Draft House because some of them were giving out those pens, the activator pens. Probably one of the coolest pieces of merch that a movie studio has been putting out. They're hard to get, but you might have them near you in New York, so definitely go check those out over there. But before we get into all the movies of this week, as was mentioned prior, we've got Juror number 2. So any of you Americans who have ever had to do jury duty, probably the most exhilarating ones. I can't think of the last Juror movie other than the classic that is what's it called, 12 Angry Men. Here in cinemas. It played at Chicago, closed out the fest, the new Robert Zemeckis and the reuniting of the Forrest Gump and Jenny duo. And then we also got Blitz that we covered a little bit out of Chicago, getting more into the new Steve McQueen that is playing in theaters before coming to Apple TV+. But before we do all that, a big shout out to the most important part of the show, and that is the Intercutie patrons and members.
Yes, we always love to shout out the Intercutie team. Those of you who are wonderful enough to support what we do here on Intercut and contribute either by hitting that join button on YouTube if you're watching along, or heading over to patreon.com. And those people have their names shown up on the screen right now, but in the Academy tier they are Tushar, Cademan, Connor, May, Ricky, Joe, Wiley, Benji, Matt, Jeremy, and Michael, I guess, as well as producer level patrons Toon, Brandon G, and Josh. Huge thanks to all of them once again. And a reminder that you too can become an Intercutie either by hitting that join button, as I mentioned, right below the video if you're watching us on YouTube, or going over to patreon.com and signing up for a membership for as little as $3 a month, which gets you all sorts of cool access to some behind the scenes stuff here on the show, whether you get a inside scoop on the new episodes we're planning. Sometimes you even get to see those episodes early before the public does. Like, we're about to record a couple spoiler reviews of some new movies like Conclave, and those will be available for our patrons before they are live on our YouTube channel. Yes, but beyond that, you also get invitations to our monthly video chat, a fun gathering of Intercuties. We're a meeting of the movie minds, where we talk the latest in theaters, on streaming, whatever. Always
monthly
a fun
movie
time.
meeting. I like that.
Yeah, always a fun time chatting with the patrons. So feel free to head over patreon.com, stay right here on YouTube, contribute, and join the team.
And a big shout out to all of those on live chat. I see Josh is there. Blaze, is that a 114ZX? Also have both of them seem like they caught a Nora this weekend. So what better start to November than some classic cinema? Oh, speaking of Nora, bro, I know you had mentioned these. Were these the ones you were talking about? Hold on, let me just destroy
the posters for Nora.
Yeah, let me just destroy the set. Were these it?
Yeah, man. They didn't give out those posters near me,
bro. Thick.
Oh, it's that nice stock, that heavy stock
stuff. Yeah, got some extra ones, boy.
There we go. We'll do an exchange of the Nora merch at Sundance this year.
But no, if you had the chance to catch one of those Nora posters, it's just high quality stuff. The print on it is also fantastic. Above it being an incredible poster. But yeah, go sign up. And I will.
Sundance really. Sorry, I was just gonna say I mentioned Sundance really casually. A lot of people who watch us really care about the festival. It's probably time to start thinking about that if it is something you're considering about. We got our accommodations booked. We got our press badges. We're waiting for that festival lineup to drop next month.
I'm packed. It's in the front, like it's ready to go. It's in the car.
Do you manage one or two suitcases this time too?
Hey, it depends. We've been slimming it down to one. I'm ready to go all out. I want to get big puffer jackets. I just want to be out the entire last Sundance, or second to last, because after this one is when they're going to mention it's down to what you were keeping up with them. Yeah, were the three?
I believe the last three cities in contention are Park City, where it currently is, Boulder, Colorado, which would be interesting.
We're
kind of crossing our fingers.
We're kind of crossing our fingers.
Or Cincinnati, Ohio, which would be just a hop and skip away from you in Chicago.
Yeah, but you see, I want to get out during the beginning of the year.
It's not really a trip.
It's not really a trip, bro. If I'm going that way, I might as well head over to you. Like, what am I stopping in Cincinnati for? But it'll be interesting. Up to those three at the moment, we obviously have one that we prefer. Look, part of me feels like it's a big possibility that they stay at Sundance in Park City. But part of me is like, dang, is all of this coming up just because you're doing that like SNL bit? You know, they don't really want you, Lauren. They're just fighting against Johnny Carson. They don't really want to leave or go to these other places. They just want to show Park City, look what you will be without us. But it seems like Park City's been wanting them out there for a minute too, which is the only reason why this feels a little real, that they might leave. And it blows my mind, Zach, that we at least got to do not one, but several actual, and I feel weird saying that, but actual Sundances. When people start keeping it in Cincinnati for the 25th year, you're going to be like, no, there actually was a place where this used to be. I used to go to con at con. Super hipster. And then
we were there first. We remember what it used to be like.
And we were still kind of the aftermath because we've been to the mountain resort, which you can't even go to anymore. And that's where it originally was. And that takes forever to get up there. From there, then they went to Park City. Now they've expanded, and who knows? It's virtual, which is my favorite part of it. It's the reason why we're also bringing it up right now, because a lot of you can actually tune into it. You don't have to pack your bags. they announced again the entire lineup that's competitive. It's going to be up for you to be able to watch at home, and that's the dramatic, the international narratives. Both of those for documentary, domestically, international. I think last year they did a majority of the next category, and the only ones that don't are like Midnight and the Premiere. So obviously, that's still like a good 20, 30 movies. So if you are packing your bags, it is still worth it. But you get so many good ones that you can catch at home. Like, imagine catching Whiplash digitally.
Yeah.
I don't even understand.
Even this year, people who bought those packages were able to catch A Real Pain, which is only hitting theaters right now.
Right?
Daughters, which might be the best documentary of the year. Like several incredible films.
Look, we're gonna take full credit here at Intercut for always pushing screeners and VODs and just honestly accessibility, because like you just mentioned A Real Pain, and the fact that that is played at so many festivals, and barely right now you can't see it anywhere unless one rinky-dink theater. And Sundance premiered it digitally is insane to me. You don't just get it first, bro. You get it at the comfort of your own home. So definitely check out those passes. I know they went on sale, I want to say last week, and there's going to be some good movies. So we'll be covering all that good stuff with the lineups coming out very soon. But
for sure,
a lineup did drop this week. Maybe. It's actually playing in one theater next to me. But the newest Clint Eastwood is out in cinemas, in theaters, called Juror Number 2. A movie that, as we know, Clint goes in there, shoots one take, and it's a go. So you need to have a fantastic cast. And I think he's got a pretty serious one here. Nicholas Hoult playing the lead character of a man who comes in to be a part of this juror. Specifically, he's the number 2, who is looking at this case where a woman was murdered at a pit stop bar place. And as he is listening to the case to figure out whether this guy is guilty or not, he remembers, I actually used to be there. I pitched that to my brother. He said, why'd you just spoil the whole movie for me? I was like, bro, that is the premise of the trailer going in. He goes, I need to buy myself tickets. He never goes to the theater. What'd you think of it?
You know, it's interesting. And at the very least, I'd say this is probably the Clint Eastwood film that I've enjoyed the most out of his last few. It's been a little bit, at least.
Don't lie, bro. You like the one where he had the 3-way with himself?
Sadly, I missed out on what was that? The Mule.
No, the Mule was in theaters. The Mule was funny. Cry Macho was the one at home. I know you couldn't have missed that. We were all locked up.
No, I saw Cry Macho. Unfortunately,
Cry Macho was wild. But you are right, bro. He's been on a streak. Yeah, he's been on a streak of interesting takes. But this
I thought was pretty solid, especially by comparison. You know, it isn't to me like a going to go into the pantheon of Clint Eastwood's movies, but I thought it was a pretty solid, pulpy, like airport novel style thriller. You know, I could definitely imagine like reading the paperback of this story. You know,
or even on the airplane. Perfect airplane watch.
Exactly. It'd be a perfect airplane movie. You know, it's a solid, interesting story. I think it's got a really killer premise, no pun intended, as you mentioned, because it's basically like, what if 12 Angry Men, but the guy on the jury actually did it, right? Like, you know,
watch 12 Angry Men, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, 12 Angry Men is the classic, but yeah, what if Henry Fonda wasn't just trying to convince everybody of the guy's innocence, but also trying to not get caught himself? And that's a great idea. The way that it was initially described to me, I thought we were going to get like something similar to M. Night Shyamalan's Trap, where you have this sort of almost like goofy serial killer trying to squirm his way through. And this one plays it a lot more seriously. It's not, you know, it's not that he's like some grisly killer trying to cover his tracks, but this was like a roadside accident kind of thing, right? So Nicholas Holt's character is both like contending with his own feelings about what happened, while trying to, you know, steer the jury in the direction that he knows to be true. And I thought that was a pretty compelling. Where the movie ultimately loses me a little bit in that I think it isn't so tight in its character structure. The journey, the arc that Nicholas Holt's character goes on is a little bit wishy-washy, and when it comes down to what he ultimately decides to decides to do as the film progresses. I didn't feel like his motivations were as clear as they were at the onset, but it's still like a pretty like compelling, suspenseful thriller. I wanted maybe a little bit more from the case itself. It felt like a pretty simple, cut and dry case to be deliberating this much over. But I enjoyed it. What did you think about Juror number 2?
Pretty similar, but I do like his character. I see someone in the chat talking about the script, and I think it's a much stronger script than it is a directed film. It's directed fine. And I think the acting, when you've got Nicholas Hoult, Toni Collette, J.K. freaking Simmons, like all of them do a really good job with it. But I think this is one where you were mentioning it being like a paperback novel where you can get more into his headspace. And I think that's where the real story lies. I do think that he's got a consistent through line in what he's feeling the more you learn about his character. Because as you said, you can get a completely different movie if he was sinister. But in reality, he is a changed man who's now in this court case going, damn, I don't need to just convince people that guy there is innocent. He's almost doing a jury case on himself, which I thought was very fascinating because he's arguing for the idea that people can change. And the more you learn about him and his wife and what he went through and why he was even there to begin with, I found it to be like a fascinating play. Like if you saw this up on stage, I think it would play off a lot better than it does in the movie, only because, like you said, you're really subjugated to, you're in the courtroom, you're over here. And then a lot of the times when you're able to go out, you expect a little bit more. There's like, especially the character of Toni Collette, who is going up against Messina, another freaking really good actor. And they're kind of, one's the DA and the other one's the, what's it called? The
prosecutor.
Yeah. And she really needs this because there's an upcoming election. And because of that, she's willing to do anything to be able to get this guy convicted. So with our boy Nicholas Hoult running the jury, he's kind of playing off of everybody else's biases, I would say. And because you're spending so much time there, that's where I think it falls from 12 Angry Men. I'm mentioning everybody except the other 11 jurors. And I'm not counting JK because of what happens with JK, but like there are a whole double-digit cast that's there. I feel like you only learn things about them when it's necessary for the story. I believe people can change. Well, I'm a father who's dealt with things where I don't really see people changing. And this is the stoner who just randomly is going to be dissed by the grandma for no reason.
Yeah. And that's not entirely dissimilar from 12 Angry Men, but I think 12 Angry Men does it a lot more cleverly. Like it just sort of felt it felt more nuanced, it felt more interesting. And also like another thing that's different between this and 12 Angry Men, which maybe that's just really unfair of us to compare this to one of the greatest movies of all time, but like there's so like Henry Fonda's character is so methodical in that film, and this didn't feel nearly as clever in its dismantling of the case.
But I like that. He's anxious. Like he doesn't know. Like the man ended up there and he'd never thought to second guess, like, hey, what did happen that night? And then he like is in court and he's like, oh, wait a minute.
I just think that like if you have any passing familiarity with like court movies or courtroom dramas, you're going to see a lot of these twists coming like far away. Like there's a moment when they bring somebody up to testify that he like was an eyewitness. And it's like, well, obviously that's not a reliable testimony. And they wait half an hour to get to the part where Nicholas Hoult has to be like, well, are we sure about that? So there's elements of that, like in the terms of like the progressing through the case that I felt like the movie was maybe a little bit lacking. But I agree with you in that where it's stronger is in its depiction of this character and his sort of moral dilemma. Because less than a movie about like, will this guy get away with it, which is what I went into it sort of expecting. This is more a movie about reckoning with the consequences of your actions and what is fair and what is just, what is like the morally right choice to make, and can you like, should you sacrifice yourself for the greater good? And or does like do the justice systems, the systems that we've set up for ourselves, prevent people from doing the right thing in some ways? And I think that's ultimately a much more interesting question that this film is probing, though I think it takes a little bit to reveal that aspect of the story.
And even sometimes, right, they'll be hitting you over the head. Over drinks, says the DA and the prosecutor. Well, it's the best system we got.
Right.
And I'm like, bro, please don't say this. And they'll say it like 2-3 more times. And that's where I'm like, yeah, I feel like a lot of this would be better in a book format where you're hearing the inner monologues of them. Because once they say it out loud, it sounds very goofy. There's a lot of moments, especially with Nicholas Hoult and his wife, played by Zoe Deutsch, and a lot of their backstory and how she's now pregnant and he's trying to use her as an excuse to be able to leave so that he doesn't have to be in there. And yeah, I think it's an interesting way to give it to the audience, to have them go, like, would you judge the main character? Because the movie is his trial with us. Do you think that he deserves to be punished if he is responsible for the case? Should someone else take his punishment? It's what Toni Collette, is going through in the movie as well. And again, I like the way that they play it off. And I like his anxiety of what he's going through the case, because it's more so something where it's not the twist about it. You had mentioned that one guy, right? Oh, he saw them, but what did he really see? And once they like interview him, you realize that what it's picking apart in situations like this is that guy just wants to be noticed. A lot of these cases, you've got people on the jury who are big podcast heads, so they think they can solve a case ahead of it. J.K. Simmons reveal is a person who also wants to get ahead of it a bit. So I like the way they broke down how issues can stem, not just from within the case, but from the beginning. Toni Collette not caring whether the guy was guilty or not. They tell you immediately a win in this case gives her an automatic 5 points. So he's like playing with all of these outskirts of how it's not just the case itself, but how everybody benefits from it. And I thought it was decent for the most part. I agree with you. It is definitely a leg up from the last ones that he's made, from Cry Macho, The Mule. I think it's equivalent to Richard Jewell, in my opinion. Some people may like that one a bit more. They got a little bit more of an Oscars push. But I think, like, if you like Sully, it's in that realm. I think Sully's a B level for what I consider Clint Eastwood's directing. All those that you see at the top, probably minus American Sniper, I'd put that in the B level. But I think $1 Million Baby, Mystic River, I don't know if you got a favorite one. I own all of these. I'm a big Clint Eastwood fan. So when I made my video on The Mule and people thought I was hating on him, I was like, nah, I have a shelf dedicated to everything from the good, the bad, and the ugly onto, like, I got Bird on here, all that good stuff. My favorite, probably to this day, that he's directed is Mystic River. I don't think anything can beat that. And I would love, maybe if he adapts a book or something, for him to go back to this level of direction. But I think those days are far gone. I think the technique is different now. But this isn't bad. And I don't think it's his last movie. I think just everyone, it could be, but I don't think any creative ever retires like that.
That's the thing, right? I think people have been saying, oh, this might be his last movie for about 5 movies now. And I think
last movie for November,
obviously,
for this year.
Obviously at his age, like, the prospect of potentially continuing becomes more tenuous, but he has always been like a prolific filmmaker. And beyond that, he's a guy who has developed a reputation for working on the shooting schedule that doesn't seem too demanding of him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I could see him pumping out a couple more. It doesn't seem like he's
this?
especially
I'd go to theaters for stuff like this.
Yeah. Saw that we got a comment from Blaze, hoping that this film makes its way to New Jersey. Somewhat notably, this film has not been released in a lot of theaters. I don't know if you saw these shirts that Screen Slate put together with all the theaters that Juror number 2 is playing in, like it's a concert tour.
What is this, a real shirt?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's like official merch. I think just some dude on Twitter put it together. But
that's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. What's the front?
So, the front.
Ooh!
Should we get a couple? Bad. You want to get matching pairs?
Hell yeah! For Sundance, let's go.
Sundance.
Boom.
Yeah. So if you are in New Jersey, it is playing Paramus, the Garden State Mall. But
yeah, it's a very limited run right now.
Yeah, it does not seem like Zaslav is trying to put this into a lot of theaters. And I think because of that, there's been this sort of like film Twitter push to call this like a late masterpiece from Clint Eastwood. And I think that's maybe overrating this movie a bit.
They're so funny. And they are willing to attach themselves to anything, bro. It's some MLB Tuesday night stats. Oh, the wind was blowing this way. This must mean whatever. Stop. We run a show. Every single Clint Eastwood movie from the last couple, even The Mule, did not have a Thursday night screening. The Mule premiered 2018 because I was over in your neck of the woods during that time. I had seen it in whatever rinky dink. I think the ones off Broadway, bro. Some ugly AMC. And it was perfect for The Mule, actually. But that movie did not have a Thursday night premiere. It premiered Friday. When he had Richard Jewell, also Friday, because I was at Disney for that in 2019. When they did Cry Macho, that also did not drop for those WB HBO releases until the next Friday. So it may also be a thing with Clint Eastwood, because this was another one where you could not see it on Thursday night. You had to wake up on Friday morning. So then the rollout as well, I feel like it's just your old school rollout, just letting it roll out a little bit. And I feel like a lot of the times you get people on Twitter talking about what a limited release or something is. That I even see it with music. I think people forgot what rollouts are. They're not always effective, but it is a method that Clint Eastwood's done for the longest time. And yeah, I mean, hopefully it should get a bigger push. I don't know what you're logging it at on our Letterboxd scale, but I think I'm gonna go 3.5. 3.5 and a heart.
3.5 and a heart. Okay, so I think I'm gonna end up at 3 stars on this movie. So we can compromise with the 3.5. I think that's fair.
That's good. No heart.
Yeah. So on the official Intercut Letterboxd account, we'll give Juror number 2 3.5. And a reminder that you can follow us on Letterboxd to keep up to date with some of our latest reviews. We've also got lists we're putting together that have every movie that we discuss in our episodes here. So if you want to go back to last week's episode where we rounded up October, it's a list of all the different movies we talked about, making it a lot easier for you to add them to your watch lists.
And trust me, this is the most helpful thing that you can have, because even with us, we keep a lot of stuff on Notion. I'm gonna see if you can guess this one, because I know you're gonna mention it later. But we kept talking about this line that somebody says in something. I'm gonna tell you the scene, and I want to see if you can guess it. I'd be so surprised. A little Cineclash for you right now. Sometimes you remember a scene and you're like, but what was that from? What damn TV, short, YouTube video, movie at a film festival? A dude walks up to a bar and he asks for a Crown Royal, and he said, give me the little bag that comes with it. We spent the whole weekend going, where the hell is that from? Now, if we had mentioned it on this show, all an Intercutie's got to do, instead of scrubbing through hours, is go to the list on Weekend Must Watch and see it. So I'm promoting our list like that. But I asked Zach, do you know where this is from?
Are we? I'm at a loss. I want to say like Red Rocket or something.
It's a TV show.
TV show.
Two guys do a song for them. They walk into a bar. The guy asks for a Crown Royal with the bag. He makes them pay for it. And I'm bouncing over and over. Like, what could it possibly be?
Is that Atlanta?
I went through all of 2024.
Tell me the show.
Detroiters episode 3, bro. Episode 3 or 4, because I just started watching it. I've been having it in the background. There are so many scenes from that damn show. I know you're gonna bring it up later, but they keep coming in the back of my head. I'm over here scratching like, was it from Hard Truths, bro? I don't remember them going into a bar. I'm thinking of all of these movies, and it's so many scenes from Detroiters that are on there. Now, if we would have talked about Detroiters, I could have just gone on our list and figured out what it was. But it was one of those that, because it just got put on Netflix, I could not remember it. Now we've mentioned it here, and now all of you know about this Crown Royal scene and any other scenes that we mentioned. It'll be up there on the Weekend Must Watch list.
Yeah, if we're already working on our November 4th list, and I got that Arturo also brought up a line from Detroiters, so you're covered.
There we go. We're gonna end up putting like quotes on those logs. You know, like some people, they're always arguing about what a letterbox should be for. Is it a one-line review? Is it an IndieWire review? I like the idea of just like posting when we've talked about it. Here it is. Here is that. Here's the quote from this. Juror number 2 in theaters. Let us know your thoughts on that one. The next one is a film that I feel was getting a much bigger release because they were pushing it as like this reunion between not just Zemeckis, but his stars, having Tom Hanks and Robin Wright come back together for a Forrest Gump reunion in a movie where it's just one shot, really.
Yeah.
You watch the entire film from this corner of a house, which before that was when the dinosaurs were coming in and the Pilgrims were coming in. Native Americans were there. I was really interested by that approach. I'm not always the biggest fan of Zemeckis's VFX. I want to say, let's bring up Zemeckis over here to talk about it. I think one of the biggest ones that gets memed to this day is the Polar Express, but people love that movie. I love Roger Rabbit. To me, you can't get any more polar opposite than the Polar Express than what this did with animation and live action.
Which is all to say that like Zemeckis is a guy who literally for longer than you and I have been alive has been trying to push the boundaries of visual effects in cinema and where the point between, you know, computer animation or even hand-drawn animation and live action can kind of meet. And I think it's been interesting to see him sort of chart that course. There's, you know, been much more successful versions of it. Like you mentioned, Roger Rabbit. I think The Walk from a few years ago with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, pretty solid as well.
Don't forget Marwin. Zach.
Zach, don't would maybe go in the less successful bucket.
Flight 2. Flight's great, bro.
Did you see the first 45 minutes of Flight?
No, Flight's underrated, Yeah, I'd give it an extra half star right now just thinking about it, to be honest with you. But people were bringing that up, I think, in October. There's that one scene. I don't know if you saw that trending, the one scene where he's like, did you drink October 5th? He said, I drank October 5th, October 6th, October 7th. They said, shout out for everyone celebrating. But I mean, the man is a master. There's no taking it away from that. I know we live in a generation where you make a bad movie and they throw you out with the bathwater. But no, like this is huge. What's up?
Reorganize that by release date so we can see what the recent run has been, though.
Let's see, from newest or first?
Newest.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I like Allied. Allied's not bad.
And that's the rare one where he didn't go heavy with the VFX, right?
Yeah, and it's probably why he should have not done that for all these other ones. I mean, it is back to back to back. Marwin, again, was like this miniature stop motion thing. Witches was trying to do the remake in a way that I don't think was scary or even more effective. Pinocchio, not only do I not think it was good, terrible time releasing it against Guillermo del Toro's Netflix version of it. And now we got here. I don't know if you've got anything else to say about this like middle run right here, because Christmas Carol was also not something. He was doing like one for himself, one there, one for himself, one there.
That's the thing, right? Like it's a lot of hits and misses. You know, you get your Castaways and then you get your Beowulfs.
But it's someone trying, and I think that's the biggest thing that I see with Zemeckis is that he's always swinging for the fences. And look, there is a lot that I didn't just like; I loved in here. I do think the premise is interesting, and they do this specific thing where because you're focused on one corner, you can see a scene playing out in the present, and then they'll cut like a box. There's all these frames that pop out where it's like you're seeing something from before, or you're seeing something that's going to happen after, and it shows you the cycle of this place.
It's a really interesting technique. You know, you see the window is in the trailer and there's the theme of windows, this motif of windows throughout. And so you will get these literal windows into different periods of time within a scene. So like they do it in a really compelling way where you'll see a scene from like the 1960s. I'm taking names out of, or years of the year, a scene from like the 1960s where they were watching the Beatles on TV, and then you'll get a window where the Beatles continue and they'll jump forward to the 1970s and that Beatles song is like the score for the scene. So there's clever ideas in there for sure.
Very fascinating. Yeah, especially when it's not even cutting to other iterations like, oh, someone gave birth here, right? When it was just dirt, it was just grass, and then someone else does a home birth there. It's like, okay, those are interesting parallels, but they'll do things where it's like, there's this one scene where what's his name? He's playing the grandpa. He's
Paul
Tom
Bettany?
Hanks' dad. Yeah, Paul Bettany goes to his little corner, right? Because it really is just one frame. He goes to his little corner where he keeps his alcohol, and they'll put a frame there, and it seems like for no reason. It's just a frame there to highlight where he's grabbing the alcohol, or is he showcasing yet again another flashback? That he does it so many times that by using the device you've been seeing to cut forwards or backwards, it's showcasing to you, yeah, this man has an issue. That's not him picking it up today. That was him picking it up yesterday, tomorrow, like he's going to for a long time. And it adds to his character. I thought that was such a freaking fantastic, cool way to show this movie, to present the movie. Then you had the ugliest CGI on these people's faces, man. Absolutely terrible. They de-age and they... we have not seen people, it's always de-aging. They pro-aged, or however you want to call it. They did it to some characters too, where they made them older through CGI.
Right. It's very weird because the stars, as you mentioned, of this movie are Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. two actors who we're obviously like very familiar with, and they're, despite the fact that they are, I believe, both actors in their 60s, they don't spend a lot of time in this movie in their 60s.
No.
Robin Wright is 58, so I don't want to age her up, but like you see them mostly as like teenagers and young adults, and then you also see them kind of in their like senior citizen age. There's a little bit of like maybe they're in their 40s, but it feels strange. Like it almost feels like they should have cast Paul Bettany and Tom Hanks in opposite roles. They would be more age appropriate for what they're being asked to do.
Honestly, bro.
But this de-aging thing, like obviously this is part of Zemeckis's like draw to projects like this, is to try these ambitious ideas. But we've had so many different projects take a crack at it, and they always just end up in this weird uncanny valley. You know, Scorsese is in my book, in yours as well, like easily one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. Very rarely does wrong. Those scenes in The Irishman are the worst parts about them. They stand out. Yeah. We had the young Harrison Ford in the most recent Indiana Jones movies, and it's just like it never works quite as well as when you just cast a younger actor. So I found myself getting pulled out of this movie a lot, like being asked to believe that Tom Hanks's 68-year-old but now plasticky looking face is supposed to be 17.
And it's weird because I see some people in the chat saying like the budget and that it's not the worst. It's not the worst, but that don't make it good. Like you could still very much see it. I think a big one was when Alien Romulus came out. There were some people who wanted to fight for the face.
Right.
And now that it's out on VOD and you can't deny it, people are like, oh yeah, I don't know what I was saying. No, we get it. You get to hide behind it when we don't have the full footage out. But after a while, you will see it age. Do you remember in Thor Love and Thunder where they had the floating head? And fans argued, no, that's what it's supposed to look like. Not only did it look like crap once it came out, but they literally fixed it. So they leave you looking like a fool. Trust me, this is not going to age the best. And that's kind of what our pre-discussion was, that a lot of these swings that he takes, he's not like Cameron. He will do it before the tech is ready. Cameron will wait till the tech is ready. And I think that that's a fascinating difference between the two of them, because many times you can argue that Zemeckis may get more heart in his movies from his actors. Maybe. I'm not putting Jimmy down. But James will wait for that tech to be ready. And here there were a lot of elements where it's like, you brought up really good examples with The Irishman and with, what's the other one that you had just said?
Indiana Jones.
It's perfect. Yeah, because of their bodies. Not only do you have the face that maybe works for you, but I think you and I know Tom Hanks and her way too well to be like, this looks funky. Why am I hearing a 60-year-old Tom Hanks coming out of that body?
Right. Like his voice doesn't sound
You can
youthful.
hear it. Daddy. Like, no, come on, dude. And then he's jumping around, and that's where the next thing came in what you're talking about with The Irishman. If the face got you, what couldn't was that specific scene you're describing where in The Irishman, De Niro kicks like an old man. They have this guy hopping around, and for a portion of it, I think he used body doubles. The body of young Tom Hanks has to be somebody else, and then his face superimposed on them. Because there's moments where he's like jumping around and stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, you guys took the lessons from The Irishman, but now I can tell that that's not Tom Hanks' body. So it feels like those Iron Man scenes where the head's just floating on the top of some other figure. I think Helen was the only one where it worked a little bit better, and she's got a lot more emotional scenes as well, so they also play off well. But I think they should have just stuck to the moments. Like with Paul Bettany, they use makeup. The one who plays his mom from Yellowstone, dude. Probably the most solid character. See if I could find her here. Kelly Riley. They use makeup to age her up. She's able to play the young character all the way up.
Right.
You even have that other couple that they cut to, the lazy boy. I thought they were a really good addition to the movie.
Yeah.
So again, it's not enough for me to throw it away, but it's like, damn, I wish they did it a little bit better because it just looks soft. You could just see it.
Yeah. I will say I do have some qualms beyond just the visual look of the movie. By the way, this is the comic that is the inspiration for this film, which also does a similar windowing thing that's pretty compelling. This Richard Maguire piece called Here. But when it comes to the Zemeckis film, you know, while the windowing thing is interesting, I did feel like this weird, almost claustrophobia by being locked into this one position for an almost 2-hour movie. I don't know if you felt that as well, especially like it's not like all the action takes place in front of you. There are people walking in and out of the frame. They literally walk kind of past the camera in this unsettling way.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough that I got a completely empty movie theater to watch this in. I got up and I walked around, man. I felt too confined in that one shot for that long.
I almost felt it. I can see that. To me, it was like they'll have moments where they get rid of the house. So in getting rid of the house, it's like, oh my goodness, okay, finally, there's like something
breathe.
else that was here. Yeah, let it breathe a little bit. And in that, it kind of reminded me of what's his name, who's splitting his horizons into 4 parts. Yeah, Costner's whole thing with Horizon is like, this is the sand settlement that the settlement that people used to live on. We came to settle here, and eventually, to me, he's gonna end the whole series with what does that settlement look like in the future. This movie kind of covered that. It went to the dinosaur era, to the Ice Age, up to even the present. And I guess to me, the only time that I really felt not necessarily claustrophobic, but like we're stuck in this kind of redundant story that you're trying to pull is when they went to the present. There's only one family story that I thought was so like Robert Zemeckis trying to write something he's never written. And it was for the present family through and through. It's a black family where he decides to write this speech that one should have happened in the car because you're describing what to do in a car. Right. And 2, it was like, bro, they can't live. Every single character in here is a lazy boy creator.
Right.
Seeing if you should put everything into his passion. The father of Tom Hanks, Paul Bettany, had a passion that he's so mad when his son isn't going to follow his. Tom Hanks' character has a passion of, and then what's the black family, bro? That like you have a pattern for every single character, and then you just relegate them to that. I thought it was the lamest thing, bro. I was like, this is not only a bland story that you have here, but it just feels like you forgot to cover this in 2020. So it's like now you're turning in your draft of, sorry guys, I forgot to put this in one of my movies. No.
It's this attempt to widen the scope of the movie that ends up really narrowing your view of this type of character, right? And it's unfair to limit them to this really weird and
not their life
interaction. Right? Like it's kind of like if you want to make that part of your story, they got to be a bigger part of your story than that. That can't be the only thing they're there for.
Yeah, he may not want to hear it, but the craziest part is someone in this house in the 60s would have been the perpetrator who would have done that. Right. But y'all don't want to go that wild. Y'all just want to come in and do like, hey, check that in.
That would have been a much more interesting use of the windowing. But that's the thing, though, is that this film, even when it is very clever in how it puts things, juxtaposes elements, a lot of it comes across pretty heavy-handed. And it's not just the like racial politics of driving as a black person in modern America. It's the way that they will foreshadow medical situations in the film. It's the way that they will, it's not just enough for somebody to have a cough. They have to explain what the cough is related to, right? Like it's just a little, I think, because the movie does this thing that in theory I think is really interesting. No scene really lasts longer than a few lines of dialogue,
which is good.
And it's an interesting idea. I don't know if it fully works because it makes, when you have to have a big moment, it feels too forced. It's almost like, when you go to like a museum and they show you like a little animation to like put you in time and place, and it's like some guy's like, oh, I'm gonna bring my musket when I go off to fight in the Civil War. I will write you letters, Margaret. And it's just too articulately written to try and get across information. The exposition happens far too forced to feel like it's a lived-in, authentic, genuine moment.
Yeah, I got one for you. There is a Halloween party where they're dressed up as Benjamin Franklin. So they decide to do a window frame where a guy first of all, the guy talking smack about BF was coming through the exact same spot, right? Because that's the gimmick. And at that exact moment, he was like, man, ain't no one going to remember Benji. It's like, bro, what is this? It's those moments like that take you out so much because you're already giving a lot into the movie. Really, every important conversation happened in this living room. There was never one in the kitchen. There was never one upstairs. It always happens here. And it's like you're already pushing that. So to give me little gimmicks like that was a little goofy. Yeah, through and through. I don't know. I still at the end of it was not looking forward to this movie at all. So I ended up a little bit more positive than I thought. Not so much to give it a recommendation, but I think overall, and I'm curious to check out the comic that you had pointed out here as well to see kind of how it plays. But look, I'm logging it in with 3.5. The season's
3.5.
nice. Sorry, 3. I said 3.
Okay.
But I'm gonna give it a heart because of the editing, because of the framing. I want to see someone use that well.
Okay, I'm probably more of a 2-star on it, so I think we can give it an Intercut 2.5.
Perfect.
Great. Robert Zemeckis,
Clint Eastwood.
I do want him to keep making movies. It just needs like maybe a better script, maybe a better reason to do, and maybe just stop it with the de-aging. I don't know if anybody's ever gonna get that.
Could be, yeah. 2025. It's November. Both these men have a new movie coming out. Who are you going for?
Wait, we're talking Zemeckis or Eastwood?
Robert Zemeckis. Clint Eastwood.
I think if it's 2025, I might go Eastwood. You know,
Eastwood.
fresh off Juror number 2, the world's his oyster. You know, there's a hot new filmmaker with a movie in theaters.
I see that. Good choice. I'm going Zemeckis because his movie would premiere on Thursday, and I know I got to wait for the Eastwood movie until Friday because that's how he rolls them out. Blitz, the newest movie from Steve McQueen, after also making a slew of movies in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, well, with the Small Axe series. 2020, damn. We had covered these extensively when these came out because it was technically 4 mini films presented as a TV series.
I think it was 5.
What's the 5th one? Oh, you are right. There's a 5th one. So we got Lover's Rock, which I think was, I don't know which one your favorite was. Mine was the John Boyega one. Was this your favorite one?
I liked Lover's Rock the most, but then the John Boyega one is probably second.
Yeah. One of the ones that Education has definitely stuck with me a lot. There's a lot of lines in what that story's about with the kid just trying to enter the school system. Alex Weedle. No, bro, I'm telling you.
No, there's the Letitia Wright one also.
Which one's that one?
It's directly above the one you were just clicking on.
Boom. What was hers about? Mangrove.
Oh,
the whole jury. Yeah. Okay. How can I forget that one? Just he released too much in one go. Prime did not push it the same way they did not push the Underground Railroad. So you have a lot of stuff that's literally sitting on your Prime account. That is some of the best movies that they've got out there. Now he's working with Apple, and they're giving him a full release. This is playing in theaters, unlike Netflix that can't put their stuff on some Regals and AMCs. Blitz is playing in a majority of places. I got to see it at the Chicago International Film Festival. And I know that I was talking to this with Blaine, one of our viewers, when we were waiting in line for one of the movies. And he was discussing how he really wasn't looking forward to Night Bitch, specifically because he wanted Amy Adams to get a win. And he just felt like, that's not going to get us the win. He was like fantasy casting, right? Because at that point, you know that they're doing their artistic stuff, but it's not where you expect them to be. And I think Blitz was another one where we expect a form of subtlety, a very artistic look of something from Steve McQueen. But in this case, he's decided to get a bigger budget to tell a story he's been wanting to tell about this period in time that isn't as... I feel bad saying it's not as artful as Shame or Hunger or any of those, because I do think it is there just at a bigger scale. It is definitely more mainstream.
For sure. I mean, that's the
tough
thing, especially when you have a director like Steve McQueen who has made these like incredibly artful and incredibly moving pieces of cinema, is that maybe this is the problem we had when we were talking about comparing Juror number 2 to 12 Angry Men, is that when you start at a really high level and you fail to achieve that same high level, it's not a failure. It's just there's a disparity that we can't help but comment on.
And Blitz is a story where I see a lot of people going, oh, this is Oscar bait. It's another World War II movie. You got a racial angle to it. You got Saoirse Ronan running for this role. You got all these different things that I don't think make it a bad movie, but doesn't make it this fresh thing that McQueen could hit us with. But I still like it. So I've been finding myself be a little bit of a defender for Blitz because I think it has an incredible child performance in it. I don't know if you want to recap the story because I know we both mentioned it at the festivals, but
yeah, so
I think it's a solid story.
It takes place during the Blitz in London and during World War II, as London is being bombed by the Germans, and people are being evacuated from the capital. So Saoirse Ronan, who plays Rita, a mother to a 9-year-old, decides to put her 9-year-old on the train to evacuate him from the city. And her 9-year-old George, played by newcomer Elliot Heffernan, escapes that train and begins a wayward journey back home. That is sort of like an Odyssey-like thing where he comes across many different people on his way back. And it it's a compelling story, and as you were mentioning, like, it is a pretty interesting angle on the type of this type of war film. I feel like we're often much more focused on what's happening in the combat zones and less on the home front. This shows you a lot of Rita working in factories because women were sent in to do a lot of the jobs that men couldn't do when they were deployed. And it also has a interesting perspective on race because while we often talk about war as this time when countries come together to fight for greater good or bigger causes, the reality of it is that people are selfish and self-serving and aren't going to ignore their prejudices just because there's bombs being dropped. So the way that I think the thing that I was struck with the most by this movie is how it pokes a hole in this idea of togetherness as a result of war, and it really shows humanity's individualistic nature in times of desperation, which is definitely an interesting perspective to get on this type of war movie.
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of war movies where you'll see the soldiers, like black soldiers, minority soldiers, fighting and then coming home to not get the respect. You get a lot of those in America, and I felt this was like an interesting flip because it's him entering war where the kid gets to reflect back at, yo, I've actually been going through this the entire. I can't play a soccer game without me getting belittled and all these different things that were happening. And it's not till he goes through this entire ordeal where he gets sent off, runs away, and in that search back home to his mom, that he comes across a soldier who kind of teaches him, like, when people disrespect you back, whistle. And it's like this out of nowhere thing where in order for the kid to not build up this almost like tension within himself, he realizes like, oh, that's the way this guy approaches life, the way that he's seeing how people interact with each other when they're in those bunkers, when everything is push or pull, when he gets to see the most evil side of society and those trying to just scavenge around, with some really great performances that appeared there. I didn't even know he was going to be in the film. But even that, those that you may trust the most, even those that look like you, can sell you out. All of these things that happen in a crisis, I thought was a really good look into this kid's story. And I also think it's shot incredibly well. I know it's a big mainstream film, but if we're talking about this being like a lot of the generic Oscar bait that we get throughout the years, then this is some of the best served up, because to me, he is telling a story that he cares about, not for the awards, but because he is able to use that budget to show you these bombings and the different scenarios, to show you what it was to be there in those towns. And I think since Steve McQueen is from over there in the UK, he's able to showcase a lot of these pieces the way he was able to in Small Axe, just in this era. I don't know. I thought he did a really good job with it. Good performances, good score as well. I think a lot of people wait for it on Apple TV Plus, and if you can catch it there, at least they're one of the best people in projecting and distributing their stuff there. It should still be just as high quality, because the tones in this, he shoots a lot of scenes at night, and the lighting in this to light not just the kid, but especially the soldier who he walks with, impeccable stuff. So you need a really good screen, which is the only reason I would say watch it in theaters. But he has some really good cinematography in this.
Totally. For me, it's a movie of moments, because there are moments that are transcendent and are shot really well. We've already talked about this one scene in which you're sort of you're snaking through like a banquet hall, and he's showing you like a before and after of what happened through the war. And to me, that's a highlight. I really like Taylor, when we were talking about New York Film Festival films on our recap, mentioned the opening with the out of control fire hose, and that scene just with the chaos that they can't get under control, I think is such a great way to sort of bring you into the action. And then there's other points of the film that I did think were maybe a little bit more conventional, at least. certainly the way that some of the messaging is handled is a little more didactic than I would have expected from the filmmaker who made 12 Years a Slave. But it's still solid. I still think it's a worthwhile film. I find it entertaining, or at least I should say maybe gripping more than entertaining. I'm landing at, I think, 3 stars on this one. I don't know how high up you went with your rating.
I was willing to push it to a 4, but I'll go 3.5 because I think that word that you said is the best way. Conventional. I don't think conventional is always bad, but it is what keeps this from being up there in the Steve McQueen movies where you're like, yo, this is an artist. You got to check out what he's doing here. It's, again, a little bit more mainstream. He's got moments, like you had said. I can't remember the name, but he plays Puddles in Joker. He's got this one scene, remember, where he's like, I want to say kind of preaching, because he does this whole bit about like, they say that my ideas are socialist, and he's trying to rally up the people. And he goes, I'm not a socialist. I'm like Jesus Christ. They would have called Jesus Christ a socialist or something like that. And it's like, okay, I could see this probably being a speech that was told during this time, but definitely one where it's putting the messaging front and center. And then at other points, he'll have actors like Harris Dickinson, my boy's in this movie, just to come in and out of certain things. And but he'll also have moments where someone says a comment about Saoirse's character, specifically because her kid is black. And this man hangs out with those people all the time. And he's like, nope, the cameras are rolling on my scene, sir. You will not be saying that. And I'm like, bro, I don't, maybe in order to impress her, but he hangs out with this guy. I feel like this is just something that's happening for the movie scene, and not so much something that he would have been so opposed to as this like almost firefighter soldier within the movie that comes in and out. But I still thought it was solid. I'm curious to see what Steve McQueen has next. I know even last year, I'm still working through his documentary, Occupied City, since this one's a whopping 266 minutes. But again, if you never got the chance to catch any of the Small Axe movies when they were released on Prime, definitely give those a watch as well.
Would you be surprised if this one ends up as a Best Picture nominee? It's kind of one of those bubble contenders that people are talking about right now.
Again, I like it, so I'm not against it. But as I also admitted, for those who think this is Oscar bait, that's the worst thing that can happen to it. I'm glad he got to make this movie he wanted to tell. And to me, sometimes that's the most important part. And it gets to live on Apple TV Plus. He got it funded. I like the kid, but I don't think he would even crack my top 10. Saoirse, definitely better than she was in the Outrun. I think no discussion there. Not breaking our top 10 either. And Blitz didn't even break my top 10 for Chicago, but it did get an honorable mention. So check it out on Apple TV Plus. But again, if the trailer interested you and you have it near a theater near you, A-list it. It's not that bad. Good sound design. Great performances all around. Blitz wraps up our movies of the week. If you have anything that you're interested in, any recommendations that you have for us that we should be checking out, definitely let us know down below in the comments section. I've seen some people in the chat also mention other similar movies. On top of Small Axe, people were mentioning Mudbound. Fantastic film as well. Great cinematography. I remember catching this one at the Mountain Resort too, speaking of movies with some history. But yeah, let us know your thoughts down below on any of the movies that we covered. What's your favorite AI de-aging movie that's out there? I don't even know if I could think of one. I just come up with like bad examples. Ant-Man and the Wasp with the de-aging on, what's his name for the dad?
Michael Douglas?
Yeah, that de-aging was scary. Who does good de-aging? Like even in Civil War, when they do it for Iron Man, when he's like reenacting the Christmas with his parents, I was like, that's not good either. So it's like, who's done it amazingly well? Or do we not even know?
In the Godzilla TV show, they cast
just casted
Wyatt Russell.
Stop. The Russells are
just de-aging.
That's what they should be doing. You know, that is a possibility if people knew how to do that. You know who does the best de-aging? If we're gonna go with flips like that, Brutalist.
Yeah,
that's how you do it. I love how he continues to do that bit. And it's the same actress too. I'm blanking on her name, where she will always play the older version and the daughter every single time, like he did in Vox Lux. I love doing that bit. You know what I'm talking about?
Was it McKenna Grace who was doing that for a second, or maybe Thomasin McKenzie or somebody kept showing up as like young Amy Adams and then young Jennifer Lawrence? And Who was that?
It would be
Jeez.
McKenna Grace more than anybody else, but I know what you're talking about. Because even what's her name? I'm blinking her name. Something Desplat. Ariana Desplat, the one from Barbie. She was young Gamora. She was young in the Heights. She was young everybody for a long time too. But yeah, if y'all have an AI thing you can think of, let me know down below. I see some other ones that are not answering the question, but are the answers I actually want to see. The substance. There you go.
Yeah.
It should all be about casting. But we'll be talking more about casting and the such when we get into some spoiler videos later on. Before we get into the second half of the show, we got some movie news here from a director that we really, really like, but he hasn't made a movie in a while.
Yeah, it's been a few years since we got a new documentary from Oscar winner Ezra Edelman, who of course made the epic crime drama documentary OJ Made in America. Was it's like 8-part documentary?
That 4.
I think it was a few parts.
It was a few parts. It was the one that changed the rule for the Oscars
they
no
changed
longer
the Oscars
be
rule,
which is insane.
So
oh no, Zach left, but he was very excited to tell you about this new movie as he hops in over here. Let me pull up OJ Made in America, because for OJ Made in America,
my bad.
Okay, are you good? I was just pulling up OJ Made in America. I told him you were so excited for this new thing.
I couldn't contain myself.
Yeah, so OJ Made in America is 7 hours long. So you may be right if they cut it up into hour segments for the TV show. Where are the episodes for this, bro? I guess that's the thing, right? Like, he did not want to split it. He said this is 7 hours.
Yeah, and there were movie theaters just showing the whole thing too. I think it was at Sundance even, I think.
Sundance was one of the first to play it, because when we were going to see that Kanye doc, they were like, oh yeah, you should be able to handle this no problem. It's like, hey, excuse me, sir. I don't know about that. But yeah, right there.
So yeah, I think we've all kind of been waiting for the next Ezra Edelman documentary, and there's been, scuttlebutt bubbling up that he was going to make a epic documentary about one of our most iconic music industry figures, Prince. And not only was going to make this one, he's going to make it for Netflix, a company that is unafraid to splash around some cash on a big project every now and again. But years and years and years later, we still don't have this new Ezra Edelman film, and now we have a little bit more clarity on what's going on, because it seems like the Prince estate is blocking the documentary. According to them, it's due to some factual inaccuracies in the film. I found it pretty interesting that Variety reported about that back in July. Mid-July, there were some articles coming out around about that. And it seems like in response to it, Ezra Edelman has done his own round of press. He spoke to a couple different reporters. He had a screening for several influential media figures. I heard an interesting episode of the Pablo Torre Finds Out podcast where he and film critic Wesley Morris talked in detail about this documentary, because they saw access to it.
So it's done.
It is done. It is ready to be released. But as Ezra is great at doing, he contends with all the kind of like hot button, potentially problematic issues that came with a public figure's career. And Prince is not a person who has lived like a perfectly moralistic life. Like he has instances of abuse in his past, and he has significant drug use, particularly towards the end of his life. And the sort of the buzz that I'm hearing seems to be that rather than the Prince estate thinking that this is a bad documentary or one that has factual inaccuracies, that they're concerned about whether or not this is going to like get Prince canceled, for lack of a better word. And so they are blocking a fantastic documentarian from releasing this 6 or 7 part documentary on Netflix.
Yeah, it says right here, 6-part documentary, Dead in the Water, which is an insane phrase, right?
Yeah.
I mean, going back to what we were saying, what did I say? I said it was 4. You said it was 8. OJ originally was released for ESPN in 5 parts.
Meet in the middle.
Meet in the middle. This is 6, bro. They need to meet in the middle because we are not getting a profile of one of the most prolific people out there, but done by one of the best documentarians, and to not get that is terrible. Now, I can only imagine what it is that he got into, because that's the reason I like OJ Made in America so much. He probes at the most uncomfortable aspects of a case, of a person, of a society, to be honest with you. I need this to leak, bro. I don't know what we need to do.
I know. Somebody at Netflix, please do the world a favor. Upload to Pirate Bay, whatever you need.
Whatever y'all got to do, bro. Y'all just let us know, and we'll cover it on Weekend Must Watch. But this definitely needs to come out. Wow.
It's interesting though, because I think this is kind
He's
of
dead, though. What do they care
unintended.
about canceled?
Well, there still is, the opportunity to like license his songs and get streams on Spotify, which, you ask me, that's only going to increase if you release a gigantic Prince documentary.
Right?
But if you ask me, what this is a consequence of is another thing that we love talking about on Intercut, is the increase in these artist-produced, almost infomercial-esque documentaries. Every big celebrity now has this documentary profiling them, following them around, talking about like what an icon they are, how significant their artistic achievements are, and they're all done as essentially like marketing for a new album or a new show or whatever it is. But the celebrity profile documentary has gone from interesting filmmakers trying to chronicle, interesting people, to, branded content. And I what I'm assuming here is that, the Prince estate wants branded content. They don't want an Ezra Edelman deep dive.
And that's not art. That's not telling the truth of what it needs to be. I got a 2 for here. I'll start with my recommendation for something like this done well. It was a documentary from Tribeca a couple years ago that I had highlighted as one of the best ones. Bitchin' the Sound and Fury of Rick James. This gets into everything that this man went through, blemishes and all. They've got his family on here. They are embarrassed by some of the stuff that's brought up, but they keep it truthful. To me, this is one of the examples of what you need, where you're able to get access to the estate to tell a true story. But because of that, you have to find a compromise, which is what Edelman's not able to get because of the fact that they don't like what he's covering. And he can't cover a Prince movie without the Prince footage, music, and all of that stuff. Another one that I would say over here in terms of what you've been talking about is RJ Cutler as a director. Because he is the best example of what you just described for the documentaries. And he does them well, but it doesn't change the fact that as much as I love the Billie Eilish doc, it is promotion for her.
Right.
It doesn't get to the sticky stuff. I'd say the Belushi one does the same thing. And most recently, Martha did the same thing as well. And even here, when he pried to anything, this woman came out and complained about it. I think the Martha doc, which is out on Netflix right now, is decent. I love the Billie Eilish documentary. But we are getting into a point where when you get really good filmmakers to make the best versions of what documentaries really shouldn't be, then we're in trouble, because now we're not seeing the difference. We don't want the Edelman docs, because RJ can make you the doc where he'll pry just a little bit, but make something where you end up liking the person at the end a lot more. Those aren't bad documentaries, but we can't get rid of the Edelmans of the world. So I do hope this comes out.
Yeah, same. I mean, it would be a shame just to, for him to have done all this work and for it to never see the light of day. And, as we said, like, clearly it's been made, right? Like the legwork's been done, and now it's just a matter of like the people with power signing off on it. But I think we'd all really love to see it. And, I think there's a lot of people, particularly our generation, who have like passing familiarity with Prince. I wouldn't exactly say like I'm an expert in Prince, and I'd be fascinated to take this to kind of a deep dive.
Yeah. I see someone mentioning in the chat as well that there was a documentary for Quincy Jones, who just passed this morning at 91 years old. Another person who there's no documentary. This is a mini series spinoff with a podcast to cover what this man has done, bro. I think one of the funniest things with Quincy Jones is you like tell people this is Rashida Jones' dad, and they go, "What?" This man has a legacy that is ridiculous. So with his passing this morning, I'm very curious to see what that documentary that they had on him would entail, and how they'd be releasing that now after his passing too. So, hey, a lot of stuff in the horizon. I'm curious. when someone passes, like you remember when Anderson .Paak tattooed on his thing, "Don't mess with my music or anything after I die."
I didn't, but badass, I guess.
You don't remember that?
No.
Dude, he tattooed it like on his arm. Do not use any of my music or whatever after I'm dead. Leave me be. At what point with all these estates, if they don't have anything like ready to go, who really is making the decisions for this to not be
Right.
out there, right?
Mhm.
Maybe Prince wouldn't have wanted it. He was a perfectionist, but at the same time, it'd be crazy that someone not Prince is making those decisions out there. You're not getting a story told, but I don't know. We'll keep up with more on that. Hey, wouldn't it be crazy if it gets mentioned at Sundance and we never get to see it again?
hint, maybe.
Would you go to
Please?
all 6 episodes? We'd have to.
If we're not sure if we're ever going to see it, 100%.
It's a premiere doc.
Bro, do you remember when Doug
theater.
Lyman put out a Brett Kavanaugh documentary as a surprise Sundance screening and it was never heard from again? You never know what's going to happen to these things.
It never came out?
It never came out.
And that's your boy too.
Yeah.
What was it
am
called,
a Doug Lyman
bro?
defender.
I remember it. It was the 2020 year. I want to say we were at the we're in the Harry Potter house for that one.
Justice. Wait, maybe it came out last year?
I thought it like went to HBO Max or something. Damn, bro. No, this is Dead in the Water.
Yeah, another Dead in the Water documentary. I mean, I can imagine that one's going to be a hard one to clear license stuff, but
for those of you
not
who
music.
This your watch list right here, Justice.
Stuff, yeah.
85 minutes, way different than 6 hours.
7 hours.
Dear Lord.
Yeah.
But speaking of the people who put more than 7 hours in on a weekly basis for the Intercut podcast, another big shout out to the Inner Cutie patrons and members for watching us, supporting us.
Thank you to all of you.
Loving
Your
us.
names are up on the screen once again. Couldn't do this podcast without y'all, so thank you so much for your continued contributions to the show.
Well, right after this, we're going to be doing a spoiler review on Conclave, which is getting a small release for a lot of people, as well as Nora, which we've seen a lot of people have now had the chance to see this past weekend. So make sure to tune in for that. We'll be putting those up on the Patreon wall, as well as for the members, getting that posted up and then being released publicly later. But if you want to add to the discussion, definitely join us right after this podcast. But let's talk about the new releases of the week. What are all the good stuff to have on the horizon as we come into November? Some really big movies coming up in November. That doesn't mean that they're all great, but I did get the chance to catch this first one. I'm just already thinking of Red One, which is kind of going to be in this rundown right here. But
yeah,
the first really good one, I would say pretty solid one, because I do think people are going to be mixed on this one. I think it's going to be fun. Heretic is the newest film to come out of the boys Scott Beck and Brian Woods, who have been around for a minute. They did direct that 65 movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Which don't think there's a lot of defenders of that one.
Not too many, but I know that they wanted to market that without you knowing that it was dinosaurs, which is quite a feat to have gotten away with that one. But they wanted to release that so that you just go in there and then go, holy smokes, dinosaurs. Maybe in an alternate universe that could have worked out. Hans is decent, but they are also the writers for A Quiet Place, the first one. And they've kind of been on that series for a while. I don't think they're bad writers. I think they put it all into this movie Heretic here. All of their greatest strengths, the way that they're able to parallel things. And also some of the weakest parts of their writing are also in this movie, in my opinion. Heretic is being released this weekend by A24, who to me is really trying to compete with like the Barbarians, the Longlegs, all of these movies that have been like really big hits. And they're trying to make this very heady, religious, provocative, philosophical movie about two Mormon girls who go do some, missionary work, if you want to call it that, in this random house where Hugh Grant is playing this very eclectic character who welcomes them in because he supposedly just wants to know more. But once they enter his house, it may be a trap, a museum of sorts, almost like a labyrinth that he's created out there in the middle of nowhere to be able to not just test his faith, but specifically these two girls. I had the chance to go see this at the Alamo Draft House for an early screening. And look, Alamo Draft House is very expensive. But they've been doing these crazy screenings where for Midsommar, or for they had a Midsommar release that ended up being for Bo's Afraid early a month with everything paid for because they give you food. When we went to this one, they kept promoting Smell-O-Vision, and I was like, I don't know what any of this means. These are not 40x chairs. I don't want to be moving if I'm ordering food. You get there, which it was open for the public as well, and they bring out pie for the scene that you see in the trailer when the girls appear. They pull up, and I'm just smelling this, and I was like, what is happening? They start giving people pies who have not ordered anything on the menu. This pie appears in front of me, and I feel like I'm in the movie. Probably one of the smartest things that A24 has done.
So you're saying I should sneak in a pocket-sized pie when I go see Heretic?
Or the candle. You know, he is using a candle, as you see in the trailer, to just give you that full Smell-O-Vision. Other than that, they should have brought some counseling, I guess, for the second half of this movie, because I think the first half is really strong. I think the second half kind of loses it a little bit. It's one where it's definitely up for discussion. It's supposed to provoke a lot of conversations. I've had a lot of these conversations in this movie, so if you've never heard of the prison system in America and you watch Ava DuVernay's 13th, you know what I'm talking about? Like,
right.
You're gonna go crazy for the next 24 hours. If you've never had any of these religious conversations and how one religion stems from another and all these different talks about iterations, this will blow your mind. That was a decent recap of a lot of those things. And in a decent recap of a lot of those things, you can feel the person who's trying to combine all of these things together. And it's a movie that I don't think should make you feel like you're watching a movie, but it definitely feels like all of these puzzle pieces that the main character is trying to put together. I can see the writer-directors doing that too sometimes. I thought the cast is good. Hugh Grant is funny in this. He's solid.
Top Hugh Grant performance, or at least from this Hugh Grant renaissance.
He's been on a run. Yeah, he's been on a run, and I'd say that this is up there as one of the top contenders for what he's done, because it's a much bigger role than what he's had in Dungeons and Dragons and all that other stuff. But the girls are really good in this as well. Sophie Thatcher, Chloe East. But yeah, I wanted the second half to be a little bit stronger. I will be watching it again to kind of get into a lot of the Easter eggs and foreshadowing that they do in there. But I would still recommend it as a junior price. I think some people may not care for it and it would be a rental, but it's still worth watching to some capacity before it even hits streaming, in my opinion. So Heretic out this weekend from the boys Scott Beck and Brian Woods.
Yeah, I'm curious about it. Obviously, a lot of the people who we in our group who saw it at TIFF were big fans of it. Chase was a very big fan of it. My non-platonic roommate Caitlin was saying she liked it a lot, and that it was not so much that it was a very horror-leaning film, that it is a lot more of like a talky, heady drama with maybe a couple scares in it, but that it's not necessarily like the most horror-forward horror film.
Nah, at all. It says horror forward as Red State was from what's his name?
Kevin Smith.
Yeah, from Kevin Smith. It's more so like he's trying to, what's scarier, the religious people or the people against religion to a degree.
Right.
But yeah, I think I would also, as of right now, go 3.5 on it. But I'm curious to know, and I'm excited to talk about this one with you next week once you catch it. Bring your blueberry pie. We will not be talking about this one next week, even though there are early screenings. So I got to mention it here. This is one of the biggest movies coming up the following week, but they're going to be doing a lot of screenings on Sunday. I don't know if you heard that bit that was going around that there's critic screenings that happen. So they're opening up, they're releasing the embargo when the election is happening tomorrow. So
yeah,
they don't have
the review embargo. The review embargo drops at 9 p.m. Eastern, which I believe is also the time that like Wisconsin is supposed to drop their early voting numbers. So that's a very unique strategy for hiding negative press.
Go for it.
Give them that.
I mean, who's taking this seriously, bro? What is this, bro? They got the Coca-Cola polar bear in a movie. There is no reason why this is a massive production like it is. So many behind the scenes stuff, and we'll be discussing it when we discuss it. If we do end up catching it early, what's up?
This looks so made for Netflix. I can't believe it's not actually made for Netflix.
Yeah, this is a Walmart value basket movie that you forget. I don't like Red One already sounds like an old title that we forgot about already, and it's coming out in 2 weeks or 1 week if you want to see it early. Jake Haslam, what's he done?
Nothing really.
You know what?
That good.
You know what?
I mean, I guess Walk Hard. I love Walk Hard.
What decade was that, bro? 07? Come on.
Yeah, almost 20 years ago now.
Come on.
I guess the Jumanji movies aren't terrible.
Look, the best that this could be in some of the moments I've seen in the trailers is a Jumanji movie. But the worst parts of Jumanji seem to make up the entirety of the trailer so far. We'll come back. We'll report. We'll give it the time of day. If you catch it early this Sunday, let us know. The next one was one I think you guys maybe all caught.
Yeah.
Piano Lesson.
Yeah, this is the latest film in the sort of decades-long project that Denzel Washington has undertaken to adapt all the different August Wilson plays. This one even started out on Broadway, where many of the members of the cast were in it. You might even remember, I think we talked about John David Washington, Samuel Jackson. I think it was Danielle Brooks at the time. I'm not sure if it was Danielle Deadweiler. We're all in Piano Lesson on Broadway together. So these actors have many reps and a lot of practice. You normally hear about how there's not necessarily like a lot of rehearsal time for actors before a movie. They had like a year of rehearsal time for this one
on stage.
And not only is it produced by Denzel Washington, starring John David Washington, this is the feature narrative debut of Malcolm Washington, Denzel Washington's other son.
Benny got shot.
You seen that one?
It's a good short.
Oh, there you go. So
this is when we started Sundance. Yeah, 2017 when we started Sundance. Wow. Yeah, okay. Well, you saw this.
I did see Piano Lesson.
Delivers?
And I wouldn't say that it's like one of the standouts of my TIFF experience, but in terms of seeing like great actors delivering great dialogue, like it totally delivers in that sense, right? I think John David Washington is giving a very different performance than you're used to from him. It is a bit loud and boisterous, but like he really feels like he's disappearing into a different guy. Danielle Deadweiler is the star. This woman who sort of has been haunted by elements of her past and really is holding a lot in, but has these incredibly powerful moments in the film as well.
Great actress.
Plus, it's not a bad thing when you get some Samuel L. Jackson in your movie as well. I think the movie, you will be able to tell quite readily that it's adapted from a play. Like a lot of this
like Fences.
Yeah, like you feel the characters trapped in a house together in a lot of ways, and you kind of I was sort of itching for more movement to keep going, but I think there's these flourishes he has, particularly when dealing with the paranormal in this movie, that make it a lot more cinematic than I was expecting. So there's some really beautiful images put together. Some people are talking about this as a potential Oscar contender. I would not be surprised to see this kind of on the outside looking in. Maybe Danielle Deadweiler breaks through, but it's a solid movie. So if you don't get a chance to see it in theaters, is it going to be Netflix this weekend or next week?
Netflix in a couple of weeks. So it's one of those where you get it for a week or two. So I guess my first one, you wouldn't put this over Fences.
I think Fences is still better, if only because Denzel is so magnificent in that film.
Would you recommend this in a theater? Or would you say just watch in the comfort of your own home, since it's about to be out?
I feel like you could probably wait, but it doesn't hurt.
Piano Lesson coming out this week in your home theater very soon, and it was one of the big ones out of Telluride, so it's got the Telluride coastline. If that intrigues you. Another one where I can't remember what film festival it played at, but Rodrigo Prieto, bro, the cinematographer.
Oh, right.
For so many classics, especially with Scorsese, is making his, I want to say his feature because this has to be a short. Yeah. His feature film debut, bro. Let's look through his cinematography for those of you who don't know. Barbie, Wolf of Wall Street, Killers of the Flower Moon, Brokeback Mountain, Irishman, like ridiculous. One of the best cinematographers.
That's before you even mention his groundbreaking work on Taylor Swift's The Man.
That shouldn't even be counted here because I think that's a religious experience. There needs to be a whole nother Letterboxd account for that one right there. The Man is one of the best to do it. And yeah, thank you because besides what's his name, Billie Eilish videos, so many iconic stuff that you've seen in pop culture, this man has done. I always go back to the story from Killers of the Flower Moon. The big Oscar moments for Gladstone was when she's in the bottom of the stairs. And he said that they ad-libbed that. I don't know how you ad-lib as a cinematographer, but they said they scoped out that spot and he put the lights boom, boom there and got that shot in like a couple minutes. One of the best to do it. And now he's got a feature film debut over here, which stars, if I'm not mistaken, I don't even think it'll appear here, but yeah, that's it. He's got the Netflix series where he's the Lincoln Lawyer. I like that show. I think he's decent in it. They just came out with the third season. and now he's the main character here in Pedro Páramo, which I have no idea what it's about. I just know that Prieto's also doing the cinematography here. He's doing all the heavy lifting. So I'll be catching this one this week at home.
Nice.
Whopping 130 minutes, but it's going to be up on Netflix. So good on him for getting his debut.
Yeah.
Toronto, it was a TIFF actually. There you go. I knew it was at a festival.
Huh.
So there you go. Pedro Páramo out this week alongside another Netflix thing because it's on Netflix. Arcane season 2. I don't know how they're splitting it. They're splitting it in some ways. I don't know if you saw the first one. I hopped on that one, and for the most part, I thought it was a pretty solid show. Pretty good animation, and I know nothing about League of Legends. This is one of those that I do think cross platforms in terms of you not even having to be a part of that fan base. Do you ever catch anything from the first?
I caught, I think, for the first episode or two, and I thought it was extremely bland. And then lots of people came out, not just liking it, like loving it.
Yeah,
loving it. So it makes me feel like I missed something, and maybe I need to give it another watch. But it's also not necessarily my thing. We'll see.
Yeah. I'll be catching this one. I thought this first season was pretty good. They're splitting, I think, the second part into 2 parts, one now and then the beginning of 2025. But I like the cast. The cast has been really strong. Haley Steinfeld has been on her animated voices from Spider-Verse. I think she does a really good job doing something different here. But I think the standout easily, and she's also got her own show now. I think I got her all the way at the end, bro. Right here, Ella Purnell, bro. She is killing it in so much stuff, not just with Fallout, but she also got that new show. What's it called? I'm on her IMDb. Let me just check it. Sweet Pea. I ain't got stars, but I got the free trial to see the first episodes of Sweet Pea. Finally getting somebody who's just like a murderer from the female perspective who goes absolutely crazy with the eyes that she's got. She's killing it in the live action realm, and I think she's killing it with the voice acting. So I would put Arcane on the list if you're curious to catch up on it. Not to mention that the intro is JD. Jid does it.
Oh, nice.
You don't get to hear him in the intro because it's a song with Imagine Dragons, so they do cut out his part until the credits. But I'm here to support Jid. But those would be the picks, or the new releases, I should say, that are coming out this week. For my actual picks of the week, I'm starting off my first selection with a twofer. 2 documentaries that are playing in theaters that both came out of Sundance. And if I'm not mistaken, I am mistaken. You couldn't have seen any of these if they were on the virtual platform. I think these were both premieres. So soundtrack to a Coup d'etat is Coup. I think it is one of the best edited movies of this year. I think that the story is also very gripping because it's talking about how during the 60s, a lot of people wanted to use musicians to be able to kind of push whatever mantras they wanted, be it for war and the such. And they kind of all got together, banded together, and used their music in the opposite way. It is made up of just archive footage, and it is edited in the wildest way possible. But it's specifically the rhythm that goes alongside their music that works so well. It is a whopping 150 minutes. So maybe it may be too much to watch at home. I know we had the ability to catch this as a screener, but I would definitely put this one on your radar. Fantastic one. Soundtrack to
I just want to take a second to look at the listed cast of this movie because it's Louis Armstrong, Dizzy Gillespie, Nina Simone, John Coltrane, Nikita Khrushchev, Malcolm X, and Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Crazy stuff, bro. Like all of these people have gotten documentaries in just the past 2 years when we've gotten to festivals from Mac Roach and the such. And yeah, they're just put them all in there in a movie together to see this one little storyline that connected them all. Very, very cool stuff. Check that one out. As well as my second one, which is still sticking with the music, Luther Never Too Much, that breaks down pretty much the entire career of Luther Vandross, everyone who he inspired, the background to his music. And I think it's if you don't know anything about him, I think this catches you up with a lot of the stuff that you need to know, especially his influences. The dude was smooth. It captures his smoothness through and through. Give this one a watch if you're interested in it. Both of them are out this weekend theatrically, and probably in a month should be available at home. But both good documentaries to add for your end of the year list. Keeping it with the Sundance one. Finally available at home and on Amazon Prime, bro. My old ass. I'm very excited to revisit this one because we were excited for it. And then it kind of hits you in the most subtle comedic way, like we always say, and it drops a bomb on you by the second half of this movie. A film in where a young girl is kind of facing a life crisis in terms of what's going to be next, not only for her family and the farm and school and her friends, relationships, but then does a trip with her girls and ends up seeing an older version of herself played by Aubrey Plaza. They make fun of it in the movie, but I found it to be a delightful film, specifically because of the lead, Macy Stella. Even in the interviews for her, they're talking about like, yeah, this is the girl that inspires Billie Eilish and everybody else around. So she's the go-to girl. She is going to be a star, and I think this is one of her first big roles that's going to put her on the map. And hopefully, now that it's out of theaters, people do catch it on Prime. It should be out on Netflix. It should be out everywhere. It's good.
Definitely. We were really excited for this one because we really liked Megan Park's last film, Fallout. With Jenna Ortega, but I think we also got particularly excited for this one because it was seeing a filmmaker we like work with a star we really like in Aubrey Plaza. Aubrey Plaza was like maybe our main draw to it, and I think the thing that maybe I was most surprised by is that it's Macy Stella who steals every scene, even the ones opposite Aubrey Plaza.
Hell yeah. She could be on the phone. She could be sitting next to her in the campfire. Yeah, Macy takes it for sure. So check that one out. And I think we both got episodes of the week. My throwback episode. It's not even that long ago. But how can you not be thinking about episode 8 from season 4 of Succession? The moment I saw it, I knew, oh yeah, there's going to come a Wednesday after the election where this episode is going to be talked about a lot.
Yep.
This is the one where they're all going all over the place at the news network in order to be able to either call or not call the election. And it is not only one of the best episodes of the final season, in my opinion, maybe one of the best episodes in the series, but it's going to hit so hard. All I'm going to be thinking when I'm seeing these people on Fox, CNN, honestly, all of them is just this.
Yeah.
Obviously, specifically Fox, because that's who they homage in this. But, should I put the election coverage as our mutual pick?
You going with CNN or Newsmax?
You know how YouTube TV, you get your sports so you can watch 4 NFL games?
Do the split screen news coverage.
Ridiculous, bro. But yeah, America Decides, that's my pick. And I will be watching the one that you have on as well because it's a show I need to catch up on. But you're starting off with a comedy we had brought up earlier with the Crown Royal bag.
Detroiters, yes. And for my first pick of the week, I'm going back to Sam Richardson and Tim Robinson's amazing Comedy Central comedy that did not get enough love when it was on, but I think they've both kind of blossomed into these comedy icons of late, whether it's I Think You Should Leave becoming like a meme factory on Netflix, or Sam Richardson just being a delightful guest actor across many shows and movies and stuff like that.
Emmy winner too now.
Emmy winner too. Good point.
Right? That's crazy.
They're also like real life best friends, which I think is great.
You feel it?
You really feel it in this show about a pair of friends who run a marketing agency together. It's just so silly and joyful and funny. I think it really showcases their style of humor and that just sort of good congeniality that they have. It's like the air text for what is so funny about these guys. And now it is available to watch very easily on Netflix. I had already gone through it a couple times on Paramount Plus, but I know not everybody's got access to Paramount Mountain.
The Plus. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm way better that it's on Netflix. I think it trended for a little bit, but yeah, dude, you start watching this. They are so dumb together, like ridiculously, absolutely idiots. And it just, I binged through 4. That's why I was just watching them back to back to back, knocking out. I was supposed to, couldn't. I just kept laughing at the dumbest things. Alina was telling me to shut up. I was like, no, bro, these guys are actual idiots. It was making me crack up.
The commercial pitch from their security guard is just like some of the silliest stuff I've ever seen on TV.
And even, in the beginning, it's like, we're made out of real, we don't use real hair. It's like, we don't. It's like, I know, we're answering that question for you. It's like, but you shouldn't have to bring it up because it's what's already on everyone's mind. I was like, you guys are absolute bozos, bro. They commit to the bits so well. That's the thing that sells it through and through. Definitely catch this one. Very good stuff.
Yeah, highly recommend checking out Detroiters on Netflix. I'd also recommend checking out a movie that popped up on Max this week, Janet Planet. This is a really sweet indie drama written and directed by Annie Baker about a 11-year-old during the summer and her interactions with her single mother as she sort of cycles through a couple people in her life. And I think it's just sort of articulates this really interesting phase of childhood that I don't know if I've quite seen depicted in a movie before, at least not in this way. And it's kind of like the transition from when, as a child, your whole world is your parents to when you have to kind of like make your own world. The 11-year-old in this film, she's a girl who just doesn't sort of know what to do outside of like hanging out with her mom or going to things with her mom. And her mom has reached the point where, especially as a single person, she's kind of looking for her own bits of freedom and to be able to have some independence, but not in a way that's like evil mother or like neglectful mother, just something real, something very honest. I thought this movie really captures that well. I think it also is like one of the best films I've seen about like the loneliness of being an only child. I found a lot of it to be really, really resonant, but to me, this is just a great excuse to recommend my favorite bit of writing from Annie Baker, and no better place to do that than on a movie podcast. The Flick. This is a Pulitzer Prize winning play from a decade ago that she wrote. And it is one of the greatest pieces of theater that I've ever read. Not just because I am a huge movie nerd, but I think it really speaks to just this sort of like ennui and adrift feeling that people can get quite often. It's about these three characters who all work at a movie theater, the last movie theater that actually projects 35 millimeter film in the Western Massachusetts area. So there's a lot of really cool movie nerds shit that gets discussed in the film, but ultimately it's this film about these people striving for feelings of contentment, feelings of belonging, whether that's professionally or personally or romantically. And I found it so beautifully written. So if you are a person who has an interest in theater and has a love for movies, this is like a really nice way to kind of bridge that. I read this in like an afternoon. It's not a short play, but it flies by.
Did you get the acting edition, the large print, or the stage manager?
I feel like the acting edition, but tell you the truth, I bought it off of Amazon, so
Gotcha.
they didn't have all that listed. Yeah,
it sounds fine. I'm interested in that.
I think you'd like it a lot.
Sounds good. And also with Janet Planet, this is one that I definitely have to revisit. I put that in a twofer with Tuesday in terms of parents and their children having just going at it in different ways. But I know Tuesday's also up, I think, on HBO. So I don't know, something about HBO, they're just picking them all up.
Yeah, I haven't caught Tuesday yet, so maybe that might be an A24 thing, because those are both A24 movies, right?
Yes, please watch Tuesday, and I'll rewatch Janet Planet. We'll talk about it next week.
I am in the middle of my Veep rewatch, so I am in a Julia Louis-Dreyfus headspace. My last pick for the week. Actually, I got two more here. And before I get to the Julia Louis-Dreyfus part, there is a movie in theaters this weekend. I think it's only limited. And I talked about it before in our TIFF coverage, but I'll give it another shout out to Bird from Andrea Arnold. This is a really interesting coming of age film about a 12-year-old who's living with her dad, played by the dad is played by Barry Keoghan. And then this 12-year-old sort of finds herself in this transition phase, right? Like she's becoming an adult, she's venturing out, she finds herself caught between two sets of parents who don't really do a good job of nurturing her, and she meets this intriguing vagabond played by Franz Rogowski, one of our favorite actors, and it kind of just changes her outlook, changes the way she approaches the people around her. And I thought this was like a really elegiac, beautifully articulated kind of coming of age film in a way that I think you've come to expect from Andrea Arnold. There's something really poetic about her camera and the way that she approaches character, and this film is no exception to that. I found it to be very like quietly profound.
Fine. And this one will be coming out on Movie as well if you can't see it in theaters.
Nice. My last recommendation, I saw you had the Succession episode up, so I figured I'd get my own episode of Election TV into the mix. Veep, Kissing Your Sister. This is late in the 5th season, the 9th episode, as an election gets into its dire final moments and goes towards a congressional vote. I think it's a really funny episode of TV that shows all these characters well into the run of the show when they've really become defined, and they're mining all the like really funny nuances of their personality and putting them in this high stress situation. But it's also fun because it kind of shows the like some of the desperation and scrambling that goes behind the scenes in elections from government officials. It's a really funny, just kind of place where these powerful people feel their power slipping through their fingers, and I think it pulls a lot of really great moments out of this cast. I didn't even realize until I looked it up just now on IMDb that this is according to IMDb, the second highest rated episode of the entire series. So yeah, not a bad place to start. I've been enjoying my Veep rewatch. It's just so solidly funny. The joke writing is incredible. The character writing is incredible. That whole fifth season is a very, very good one. So I'd definitely recommend checking it out, particularly given this week of American politics we're about to deal with.
You recommend going into this without having seen anything else? Like, is it easy to jump into just this episode?
I think it's easy to jump into Veep generally, but I think that like it is fun to just go through it from the start. If you find that is maybe a little more challenging and you're just interested more in like the election season, it's really easy to pick up on the dynamics. It's not like a show where they're referencing, oh, remember when you did da, 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 da. It's really just like once you get the personalities down, you get the whole dynamic.
Gotcha. All right, sounds good. Running it back, I got my twofer of docs with soundtrack to a Coup d'etat, as well as Luther Never Too Much. I've also got our Sundance pick of My Old Ass that should have made a splash in theaters, but it's going to come out on Prime. More people have access to it, and I think it's a delightful film, as well as our episodes of this week. America Decides for Me from Succession Season 4, Episode 8. I'm definitely going to be rewatching this one and that Veep episode you just mentioned before tomorrow, to be honest with you. You've got the one and only.
The TV episode that I mentioned is Veep Season 5, Episode 9, Kissing Your Sister. So those are our election episodes. But I've got another TV recommendation in Detroiters now that it's finally on Netflix, a hilarious binge to distract you from real world politics if you need it. If you're looking for like a really sweet film about growing up and becoming your own person, Janet Planet. And you can also read further from Annie Baker and check out The Flick, her amazing play. And if you're looking for something to watch in theaters, I'd highly recommend checking out the latest film from Andrea Arnold, Bird. A really beautiful piece of coming of age cinema.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
But that is it for this week's show. Make sure that you subscribe on all the social medias, all that good stuff down below. You can find more from me on all social medias over at LME Movies. Zach, where can people find more from you?
Find more from me across social media at Zshevich, Zshevich, or check out any videos from me, any place you find videos at Multiplex Show.
A reminder that you can listen to every episode of the Intercut podcast on iTunes, Spotify, whatever your favorite podcatcher is, or you could watch the live show weekly here on youtube.com, where we go through the must-watch movies, TV, news, all that good stuff, scripts for plays about movies, all of that. A reminder that you can also head on over to the Intercut Letterboxd account, where we do a list of everything that we've discussed. So if there's a movie you kind of remember us talking about, you don't know where to find it in the 2-hour long podcast, bam, you can come in here, add it directly to your watch list, log it, whatever you need. That's what that letterbox is for. Definitely let us know your thoughts on the movies of this week, what you want to see us cover. I saw someone in the chat was bringing up Chasing Amy. It was a movie that we had shouted out in Tribeca. It was one of my favorites then. You had shouted out last week, I want to say, when it was getting its limited release. Shout it out again here. Definitely. Yeah, that's playing at AMC theaters. You can use your A-list, and I think it's definitely worth it. That, to me, is what a documentary should truly be. Someone putting their whole heart into it. And the interviews, they were able to get to that. For people to come in and talk about the original film, where it fell flat, what it also encouraged, taking full responsibility for it. One of the best documentaries out right now, Chasing Amy, doing a theatrical run. But again, a big shout out to all the Intercuties as well, all of those who listen live. Shout out to everyone in the chat as well, all the patrons, all the iTunes listeners leaving us that 5-star review. That really helps us out. This week we charted in, speaking of, with the 5-star reviews.
We charted in Slovakia. We charted in Czechia. I've been saying Czech Republic because Chartable didn't update it. It's Czechia. We all know this. It's Czechia. We charted in the UAE. We charted in Thailand, in Singapore, in Poland, in Switzerland, in the Netherlands, in Ireland, in Norway, in Spain, in Germany, Australia, in Canada, and the United States of America, where we will have a new president very soon.
Right away, bro.
Yeah.
I was watching World Series. I was like, we're gonna know the World Series winner before we know the next president of the United States.
I got invited to a screening of Nickel Boys. I've seen it, but I'm really desperate to watch it again. The screening is tomorrow at 6 p.m. I don't think that's fair to me or to Nickel Boys to go watch that movie. Then
go for it. A nice distraction from the world.
Do you find you're able to like actually tune out the world when in a moment like that? I find that the ADD gets to me too much. It
might actually be better to be in that horrendous scenario in Nickel Boys than to have to come out and face the real world, Zach. So I'm, a distraction, if anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it could be difficult when you're like, what am I watching here? I gotta go see what's happening in the real world. I'm gonna be tuning in all day tomorrow. I think it's gonna be fascinating. But other than that, in terms of the movies, you can comment down below, drop a like, follow all the socials over on Intercut Pod. Like we said, a big shout out to the Intercutie patrons. We're going to be hopping on right after this to do 2 spoiler reviews. So let us know your thoughts on Anora and on Conclave. Do not tune in if you haven't seen those. We're going to go all out. And until next time, keep watching movies, or you're going to get jury duty.